It happened on Tuesday at a regular dinner. One awkward word, and the familiar world crumbled to pieces. It seemed like 15 years of life was a concrete foundation, but one question called everything into question. Could the most precious thing we have be someone else's? This evening changed everything. Shattered trust. It happened on Tuesday. Dimitri and I had dinner. I warmed up yesterday's potatoes with chicken. He ate in silence, abruptly, as always, and suddenly, between two pieces, as if in passing, he gave out, "I've been doubting it for a long time, Anna. I think it's time to do a paternity test." At first I thought he was joking. We've been raising Maxim together for 15 years. Sleepless nights when he had colic, first steps, fractures, schoolwork. We've been a team for 15 years, or so it seemed to me. "Are you crazy?" I laughed, but he didn't smile. His jaw tightened. The fork clattered loudly on the plate. He didn't look up. "What do you mean?" I asked cautiously. Exactly what I said. There were reasons to doubt. It's time to find out. I didn't even know what shocked me more, the fact that he doubted it or the cold equanimity with which he said it, as if we were discussing a tax return or, I don't know, choosing a new vacuum cleaner. Dimitri and I met when I was 28. I had already had enough of passion and was looking for peace. He was reliable, though not romantic, the kind who pays the receipts on time and helps with the cleaning every Sunday. A year after the wedding, Maxim was born to us. Everything went off without any complications. He was there in the delivery room, even crying when he picked him up for the first time. I remember it well. He hadn't even cried at his mother's funeral. And now this. I didn't shout. I didn't ask. "How dare you?" I just lay down next to him in bed that night, staring at the fan by the bed. I counted the speed of the blades, listened to his steady breathing as if he hadn't just derailed our entire lives. Private hospital? 2 days later, we were already sitting in a private laboratory. The nurse was too friendly. I even wondered how she perceives us. Like a couple of nervous parents, like a woman who is suspected of cheating, or a man who is tired of trusting. When Maxim asked why he needed to see a doctor with us, Dmitri said, "Just routine tests." I didn't say anything. I didn't tell my sister Olga, who calls me every night, or my friend Svetlana, who always has an opinion about men, or Maxim's pediatrician, who has known him since he was 2 years old. I just kept silent and waited. They promised a result in 7 days, but it took 9. Every minute weighed on me like a bag of cement on my shoulders. Dmitri hardly spoke, went to work early, came back late, ate in silence. No hello or good night. The air between us felt like it was in a hospital room, sterile and alien. First outs. On the 5th day, I couldn't stand it and asked, "What exactly made you doubt?" He didn't even look up from the Sport Express. "A couple of moments, it doesn't matter anymore. We'll find out soon enough." It wasn't the answer itself that bothered me, but the way he gave it. There was something alien and cold there, as if he had already decided everything. And I started going over in my head everything that could lead him to such thoughts. Someone said, someone compared, maybe one of his friends blurted out that Maxim was not like him. But it looks like it. The same dimpled chin, the same curly hair, even the expression on his face when he was angry, just like Dmitri. However, something made him doubt it. When I finally told Olga about it, she immediately recalled the case of Dimitri's ex and that story with the music teacher. He was already suffering from paranoia. He didn't trust anyone, not even himself. "Some wounds don't heal," she said. "They just get crusted, which is enough to touch a little bit and there's blood again." Olga offered to come, but I refused. I didn't want anyone to enter our house while this tension was in the air. It seemed that even the walls were shaking from the understatement. Maxim also changed, became quieter, more thoughtful. At dinner, he picked at his plate, as if he was waiting for the peas to tell him what was the matter. "Is Daddy mad at you?" "What is it?" he asked softly, almost in a whisper. "No, honey, Elite. He's just tired." I began to watch Dmitri more closely. How he goes to the garage to check on the car, but constantly looks at the phone. The laptop slammed shut as soon as I entered the room. But before that, he shared everything, even his boring tables from the office, articles about repairs that we never dared to do. One day I couldn't stand it and tried to open his laptop. It turned out to have a password. It wasn't there before. Test results. In the morning, when the results were due, I couldn't even drink coffee. He stood on the table, cooling down, while I chewed on my lips and clenched my fingers. Maxim was at school, thank God. Dmitri and I drove to the laboratory in silence. He held the steering wheel firmly, confidently. I had my hands in my knees, my nails digging into my palms. The woman at the reception was smiling too brightly. "Spouses of the alcove, please come in." The doctor was sitting at the table with a face like he was going to tell us that the world had run out of oxygen. I took my time. I asked first, "Are you ready for what you might hear?" I glanced at Dmitri. He didn't even blink. "Yes," he said, but I couldn't. His throat felt like it was tied with a rope. The doctor opened the results folder, sheet by sheet, as if counting the heartbeats. According to the analysis, he paused and put his finger on the line. The probability of paternity is 0%. My ears were ringing and my hands were cold. For a moment, it seemed that the heart had simply disappeared. It doesn't beat, just emptiness. Dmitri leaned back in his chair and exhaled through his nose. I knew it. But the doctor was still looking at me, not at him, and there was something strange in his gaze. Not judgment, not empathy, but anxiety. Professional medical anxiety. "There's something else," he said carefully, "and that gives me serious concerns." Dmitri immediately straightened up. "What do you mean?" We conducted a standard DNA match check not only between father and son, but also between mother and son. I felt dizzy. "What?" I whispered. He looked me straight in the eye and uttered a phrase that stayed with me forever. "Elena, according to the results, Maxim is not a biological child of either you or your husband." My vision went dark. I looked at the doctor. He seemed to be saying something else, but I couldn't hear him. I just couldn't take it in. It was some kind of mistake. It's a sick prank. Dmitri jumped up. The chair creaked on the floor. "Is this a joke?" "This is not a joke," the doctor said calmly. "We've double-checked it 3 times. This is not a mistake in the records. The biological boy you raised is not your son." Search for truth. The world seemed to stop. The sound, the color, the movement, everything was gone, like the flash of a stun grenade. I froze, wanted to scream, but screaming seemed as impossible as breathing underwater. We didn't say a word on the way home. Only the turn signal needle was ticking like a counter before the explosion. When we entered the apartment, Dmitri closed the door behind him and immediately exploded. I felt that something was wrong, but this is already beyond the limit. He walked around the room, waving his arms as if he couldn't believe he was saying it out loud. I tried to explain something. I wanted him to just sit down, exhale, and look at me, but he didn't even hear me, as if I were nothing. "You had one task, Anna," he said through gritted teeth. "Alone." And he slammed the door to the guest room. It looks like this is his new home now. Late at night, when the house was quiet, I took the box out of the closet, the one with the baby tags from the hospital, a copy of the birth certificate, and photographs. I'm exhausted, with a puffy face, but happy, holding a tiny Maxim in my arms. I know that this boy is mine, by his eyes, by his smell, by the way he scratches his nose when he's lying. But now I don't understand how to prove it. In the morning, when Maxim left for school, I sat down at the kitchen table in front of a cup of cold coffee and picked up a folder with the hospital's logo. There was a registry number on the back. I dialed it. My voice was shaking, but I spoke clearly, and I'd been practicing all night. "Hello. I need to talk to someone about a possible replacement of a newborn in your hospital 15 years ago." The operator fell silent. "I'll connect you to the archive now." The archive referred me to the administration. The administration is put on hold 11 minutes and 38 seconds. I was counting. Finally, a man's tired voice came on the line. Child substitution 15 years ago. This is the beginning of 2009. We have a storage system for the last 10 years only. You will have to submit an official request, perhaps through the court. Through the court? I couldn't believe my ears. Can't you just see who else was giving birth then? I'm sorry, he sighed heavily. Even if I wanted to help, we are limited by the laws. The law on medical secrecy. I can't give anything away. Medical secrecy. What an irony. My life is going downhill, and I'm being asked to fill out paperwork as if I've been reading too much in the library. I hung up, my hands shaking. Then I got up, put on my coat, and took the keys. If they don't want to talk on the phone, I'll go there myself, to the damn hospital. Maternity hospital and New Hopes. The road to the hospital turned out to be alien, although I used to know it by heart. I haven't been there in 15 years. Everything has changed since then. The signboard, the building, even the entrance are now in a different place. Only the parking remained the same. The one where Dimitri was running around looking for a doctor while I was clutching my stomach and praying that everything would go well. I parked in almost the same spot. Inside, it smelled of antiseptic and some kind of stale coffee machine. She went to the counter. I need to talk to someone from the archives or the administration. It's urgent. We are talking about a possible substitution of a child in 2009. The receptionist looked at me as if she didn't know whether to sympathize or press the panic button. She smiled awkwardly. Without a court decision or a request from the investigation, we have no right. I didn't let her finish. I'm not asking for addresses and names. I'm just asking you to see who else was giving birth back then. My child may not be mine. I'm begging you. She hesitated, looked around, and whispered, "Wait here." It took about 10 minutes. I was beginning to think that she had just slipped away when a woman in her 60s approached me with Diana Alexeyevna, the head of patient care, on her badge. "I remember you," she said softly before I could open my mouth. "You had an emergency cesarean. There were complications. We almost lost you." I blinked in disbelief. "Do you remember me? I've been here for over 40 years. Some stories don't get erased." We went into her office. I told her everything, about DNA, about the doctor, about Dimitri, about Maxim. She listened in silence, then opened the closet, took out a folder with a dusty inscription, "Childbirth." January 2009. I couldn't believe my eyes. "We were just switching to a digital system, but there is still something left on paper," she explained. Running her finger down the column of names and times, Diana Alexeyevna muttered, "That day there were 3 more women in labor. 2 boys, 1 girl. Only you had a cesarean section." My heart was thundering. Is it possible that someone could have messed up? She sighed heavily. We had 2 nurses sick back then. The midwives were worn out. I'm not going to lie. Yes, it's possible. But to prove... She looked me straight in the eye. You can't do it without lawyers. If there really was a substitution, someone else can start looking too. And it's not a fact that you will be the first. I didn't go home. Could not. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot, looking up at the gray sky. Next to it is the building where I first hugged Maxim to me. My child or not mine? And here's the question that tore me apart from the inside. If I didn't give birth to him, but raised him as my own, then who am I? Information search. It was late afternoon when I returned home. Maxim was at his grandmother's. Dimitri never showed up. Only his heavy footsteps could be heard on the second floor, like a dull thud of irritation. He even left for work earlier than usual. He did not say goodbye, did not look into the eyes. I took out the box of photographs again and sorted through them in silence. In one picture, I'm in the hospital, still pale from anesthesia. Her hair was plastered to her forehead, she was holding a bundle, and there was a nurse in the background. She was young, with a strange expression on her face, as if she was scared. There's something written on her badge, but I can't make it out. I look at her, and I don't understand why she has my baby in her arms. Or not mine. In the back of the photo, someone wrote, Lena and Maxim, January 4th, 2009. Dimitri's handwriting. Bold marker. I stared at that date as if it were a verdict. I dialed Diana Alexeyevna again. My voice was calm because I had said it all 100 times. There was a girl there, young, with long blonde hair, very young. She was holding a baby. This can be seen in the photo. Who could it be? Yes, I heard him reply after a pause. It was Marina Penkova, a complete novice then. I only worked for a month, and I left after a couple of weeks without any explanation. Marina Penkova. I didn't find her on social media or in any databases, as if she had disappeared. I called my lawyer on the recommendation of Svetlana, the one who always knows everything about men. You need Nadezhdin. Konstantin Nadezhdin. It's not cheap, but he led a case against the clinic when the surgeon forgot a napkin in the patient, beat out compensation of $7 million. He knows how to rock it. 2 days later, I was sitting in his office. A man in his 40s with tired eyes and a very attentive gaze. I told him everything from the lab to photography. He just nodded, making notes on a yellow pad. I've had similar cases, he said. One boy lived in the neighboring area, the other was never found. Sometimes parents don't look, they're afraid. And if they find it sooner? I asked. Real parents depend on what they want. It happens that they require a meeting or custody or just answers. But honestly, most of the time it's hard. Emotions, shock, misunderstanding, especially for children. I nodded. I haven't told Maxim anything yet. Every time I looked at him, my breath caught in my throat. How do you tell a child? You might not be ours. And we don't even know whose you are. And Dimitri? He hadn't come for the third night in a row. No phone call, no message. And to be honest, I felt relieved for the first time in a long time. He fell into resentment, into self-accusation, and I couldn't afford to drown next to him. A personal investigator and a new hope. That evening, I picked up the photo from the hospital again. The girl in the medical uniform, the one holding the baby, looked directly at the camera with some kind of fright, as if she had been caught off guard. Young, about 20 years old. The badge was askew. I couldn't make it out, but there was something vague behind her, like a second child's bed. Or maybe I'm already imagining things. I called Konstantin. Can you find this Marina Penkova? He paused. I have a private investigator. It usually works in 3 to 4 days. But Lena, if we find her, you're ready to hear everything. I wasn't sure, but I said yes. 4 days later, he called back. They found it. He lives in a village 120 kilometers away, now under the surname Valkova by her husband. Works as a florist. A florist? From a nurse to a flower seller. An interesting choice. I didn't wait. I went by myself. I got behind the wheel and drove along broken country roads that seemed to lead deep into myself. The same thing was pounding in my head. What if it was her? The store turned out to be tiny, between a pharmacy and a fishing one. Pink shutters, a sign with monograms, the smell of lilies and eucalyptus. Behind the counter, a woman with a bun of blonde hair holds scissors in her hands. She looked up and froze. She recognized me right away. How can I help you, Marina? I asked quietly. She immediately lowered her eyes. His face darkened. Excuse me, who are you? I am Elena Alkova. I gave birth in January 2009 at your hospital. You were there. She froze, then nodded, but didn't send him away. That's something. We went into the back room among buckets of carnations and glass vases. I sat down on an overturned box. She stood with her fingers clenched into a fist. I was 21, she began. The second week on shift. That night, the horror. 2 births at the same time. One is an emergency cesarean, the other is a natural one. I was confused, running between posts. I had a cesarean section, I reminded him. We had to compare bracelets, tags, and numbers on the cradles. but I was being pushed around and I thought everything was right. I was sure. Did you switch? She didn't say it on purpose, but after a couple of days, I noticed the inconsistencies. I went to the eldest and she said to me, "Shut up. Otherwise, you'll sit down." She said I'd destroy the family. And I just left. Has anyone else asked you? Did anyone guess? She shook her head. Nobody. But I remember that woman. She gave birth naturally. She had a red ponytail, tired, pale. I think my husband worked at a construction site. The name is Larissa, I think. Larissa, the redhead, is a construction worker. It wasn't much, but it was something. When I left the store, I had a business card with her new last name in my hand, and the wind was blowing in my head, pounding on a single thought. What if her child is mine? Towards the truth. At home, I found Maxim on the porch. He was throwing the ball at the old hoop again, which Dmitri promised to fix 6 months ago, and, of course, he never did. "Hi, Mom," he wiped his forehead with his sleeve. "Are you okay?" "I'm kind of tired." "A lot to do," I smiled, trying to hold on. "Dad didn't call?" "No way." He looked down and tossed the ball. "Did you have a fight?" "Something like that," I replied quietly. He handed me the ball. "Let's play." And we played until dusk, silently, with rare smiles. I looked at him and couldn't imagine that he might not be mine. That boy with the dimple in his chin and the habit of wrinkling his nose when he misses the ring. Later, I told Constantine everything I had learned from Marina, Larissa's name, red hair, husband is a builder, and she was born on the same day. He launched a search through databases by region, by discharge, by maternity hospitals. There were dozens of such Laris, but only one was perfect. Larissa Blanova, 24, was discharged on January 6th, 2009 with a boy. No complications. I dialed the number he found. There was a long beep and no one answered. The next day I went by myself. Address, 2-story brick house in a quiet courtyard. The wind fluttered the curtains on the balcony. I knocked and a woman opened the door. Her red hair was pulled back into a messy bun. The look is tired, incredulous. "Yes, Larissa Blanova." "Yes. And you?" "I'm sorry about that." We could have given birth on the same day, in January 2009, in the 3rd maternity hospital on Mayakovka. She froze. In a moment, the door could have slammed shut. But no, she said softly, "Come on in." The house smelled of cinnamon and baby soap. There's a skinny teenager with headphones in the living room. He looked at me quickly and stared at the screen again. This is Yaroslav. He's 15, stubborn and eats only pasta. I looked at him and it was as if I clicked inside. The turn of the head is exactly like Dimitri's. The gesture is the same. He didn't look like Larissa, but I didn't need any more proof. "This may sound crazy," I began, "but the analysis showed that the child I raised for 15 years is not mine by blood and not my husband's. I thought it was a mistake. And then we found a nurse. She said that maybe the children were confused that night." Larissa sat down on the edge of the sofa. "I always felt something was wrong. Yurik's blood type doesn't match either me or my husband. But the pediatrician said, it happens. And I decided that I was just winding myself up. I don't want to take your son away from you. I just want to know the truth." She sat down opposite him. "Can you do a test?" She was silent for a long time, then nodded. "Yes." Later, sitting on the porch with Maxim, I tried to imagine how I would feel if Yaroslav were there instead of him. I couldn't. I didn't want to. "Maxim, my friend, it doesn't matter what the piece of paper says. Truth and consequences." 3 days later, Konstantin called. "Confirmed, Yaroslav is your biological son, and Artyom is hers." I sat down on the floor and sobbed, not from biology, not from the truth, but from the fact that my whole life, with its warmth and pain, was built on someone else's mistake. I still haven't said a word to Maxim. How to explain to a child that you seem to be a mother, and it seems that you are not? And Dmitri, I still logged into the bank's personal account and checked his accounts. One payment is a hotel room on the outskirts, the second is a restaurant, and the third is a bouquet. Not for me. I went there by myself without warning. He opened the door in a t-shirt and sweatpants. Behind him is a woman in her 30s, in a bathrobe, her hair wet. "You're not even going to deny it?" I asked calmly. He just scratched his head. "It doesn't mean anything." I chuckled. "Flowers, hotels, dinners. It sounds like nothing, of course. She's probably just listening to you attentively, right? At least she hasn't lied to me for 15 years, he snapped. I didn't think. The hand rose of its own accord, and the slap was resounding. I wasn't lying. I was giving birth. I held my son in my arms, loved him, raised him. And if the test proved anything, it's that you're not a father, either by blood or by substance. You ran away when you were scared. He turned away without saying a word. I left. On the way, I received an SMS from Larissa. Yaroslav is asking, "Can we meet?" We chose a neutral place, a park. They told the children it was just a walk. Yaroslav was standing with his hands in his pockets. Maxim was wearing a hood, frowning. They looked at each other, then at us. "Mom, what's going on?" Maxim finally asked. Larissa spoke first. "Yaroslav, this is Lena. She's your biological mom." Silence. I squatted down next to Maxim. "Son, there was a mistake in the hospital 15 years ago. I didn't know. No one knew. But you're not ours by blood, but you're mine. You've always been mine. You're still mine." He froze. Then he stepped back. "I'm not yours." "No, you're mine. Just not biologically, you know." "Dad knows." I nodded. Is that why he left? I couldn't answer. He turned away and looked at Yaroslav. "Is that you?" "I guess." He shrugged his shoulders. "But we are different." They didn't talk anymore, just stood there. Two boys, each with their own destiny, which suddenly became common. After the meeting, Maxim hardly spoke, locked himself in the room, did not turn on the music, did not knock the ball, did not ask for more. The silence was so loud that it rang in my ears. On the third evening, I found him on the porch in a hood with his knees pressed to his chest. "Hi," I said, sitting down next to him. He wasn't looking at me. "I'm going to have to live with that woman. No, no one's picking you up, but she's real." "Am I not real?" I whispered. He wiped his nose on his sleeve. "I don't know who I am anymore." I put my hand on his back. He didn't pull away. "You know, I don't know either, but maybe we can figure it out together." The next morning, I met Constantine again. He prepared a letter to the hospital. Requirements. "Not a request. We're not asking anymore." "They will pull," he said. "Pressure is the only way. Are you ready to go to the end?" "Yes," I said, "to the very end." Larissa called later. "Yaroslav wants to see you for real, with questions." I couldn't help but smile. "Of course, I'll be glad." New life. Dmitri never came back. He got the divorce through a lawyer, without even calling, without explanation, just a piece of paper and a short signature. And, it made me feel better. For the first time in many years, I wasn't tiptoeing around my own apartment, feeling small and guilty. I was sitting on the veranda and watching two boys throwing a ball. Not brothers or strangers, just two worlds slowly rotating side by side. Not because it's necessary, but because they're a part of each other. I lost my marriage, I lost my confidence, but I didn't lose my son, and I didn't lose the strength to fight for the truth, because there are mistakes that can't be fixed, but you can live with them if you look them straight in the eye.